All right, so welcome to the beginning of this restorative bone session. It will kind of provide us with some ideas of stability versus over flexibility. So a lot of stabilizing experiences. And I want us to start with something that seems quite motionary for the back. So you've got a chair and it's next to a wall. And if you feel like it's too pushed up to the wall, you can have it an inch or so away. It's not going to be that critical that it's right up against it. But it is good to have it there so that some of the pose patterns, you'll have balance support. So I want you to take a couple blocks and you're going to be with your feet as wide as they can experience touching on the mat. They should feel a mat would be helpful. Any kind of mat, I suppose. And when you lean forward, place your blocks where they naturally elongate out of your back reach. And so everyone has, each of us has a different back reaching capacity. And what I find when I first do this is I'm kind of lifting my tailbone to make the stretch, well, seemingly easier. That's true. So I have ways of, compensatory ways of using the muscles. We all work like that. As we get older, we find ways to get around things that are a little challenging in our muscles, in our joints. So I want you to feel how the joint pattern of the ankle, the knee is pretty stacked up. I probably could use a ruler to make sure this is stacked. I'm not exactly sure, but it seems pretty stable. And then as I lean out of the tail area, it's like a child's pose for my back, but there's zero knee issues with this one. No knee stuff, no crunching. So when you lean down, you're going to take a big stretch with the arms. So you're going to reach and you decide the reaching experience, if it's going to be a little closer to your feet. And I like you to try to keep it on the mat with the blocks. And then instead of just dropping your head down, work with the extension. Think of extension as being something that you're lengthening, you're trying to provide a little more of, basically. And feeling that movement out of your breath in your ribs. I know, luckily you're not like in a circle in a room looking at each other wondering, okay, it's this awkward. But work with reaching your ribs forward. I don't know if you're looking at a cat. I don't have a cat around it so far. But as you're reaching with the ribs and the breath, start to feel what it's like to let the elbows get a little heavier and the head lowers down now. We have permission for that. Just with care that we're not just kind of dropping the bowling ball of the brain. So it's not swinging back. And you have some breath focus to strengthen that length out of the tail. So regulate the breathing, massage the digestive tract. When your body is in this position, it is putting some circulation in the colon. And then if you like to let your head lean down, that's fine. Again, just don't push the chin to the chest. Okay, and then feel when you bring your feet closer to about hips distance. So scoot the toes and the heels in towards one another. And then slide the blocks back. Hands up to the thighs, so make sure it's above the knees. And then have your back muscles flex. So you're going to push into your legs. If you need to bring your feet wider so you have some solid support with the feet, round the back just a little bit. Like you can't get quite the cat spine there, but feel when you push into the legs that you're lifting your head and feel the chin lift up. Inhale. And then exhale, just center. So the back of the pelvis centers, the sitting bones push down. Okay, get the ball. And place it between the knees. And it's important probably to use some surface, whether you have this exact item. You can also use a block, but this is responsive, so you squeeze it, right? The block doesn't squoze much. Okay. It doesn't close much. It doesn't have any ability to kind of push in. So have the hands back so that they kind of wrap around the seat of the chair. Again, if your chair is too close and you have a chair with a back, sometimes you'll need your chair a little bit away from the wall so that when you hold on to it, you don't snitch, your fingers aren't pushed into the wall. We don't want to have any discomfort with our fingers. So spread the collarbones and squeeze the ball. Okay, it feels like it's gonna kind of bounce out of the knees, then you need to kind of reset it so it's firm. But find the right setting and alternate between inhale, belly relaxes, exhale, squeeze. Inhale, knees separate a little bit, exhale, squeeze. So let's try this a few times. You might let your eyes close, you might be observing, but the basic experience is the load of circulation is in the legs. It feels pretty clear it's in the thighs. Okay, and the shoulders are reserved to be back. And you might bring your hands up to your back and just notice if that's even a natural ability for you to have your spine in this posture. Because the habit would be rounding, right? That's our habit. So we're using the chair to be a little extreme with it, to try to get the point into the muscles, the focus. So taking one more squeeze. Okay, feel what it's like to squeeze in. Okay, a lot of muscle tone. Bring the left hand to the right leg. And then I want you to take a twist. And I think the idea of squeezing the ball is going to help you from having one knee kind of swish back. So it's a little extra work, but if you can, you don't have to squeeze 100%, you don't have to pop the ball, but feel that the knees go inwards to the ball and you're rotating. And that includes the left leg too, squeezing in, not just that the part that you're turning towards the right side. That would be clear because my left hand touches the outer right leg and it kind of pushes the knee inwards. That's helpful. And then come back and center, interlace your fingers in front of your heart, turn the palms inside out, forward, and then reach the arms towards the ceiling. Just feel what your natural range is. Relax the squeeze of the ball. Rest the urge to squeeze it. Okay, feet flat. Okay, this time let's just see what it's like when we don't purposely squeeze the ball. Left hand goes back to the chair seat, right hand to the outside of the left leg. It could be towards the knee, it depends on the arm length. So it's all individual in that one. But when I turn, you know, if you feel like one leg is kind of shifting a little farther forward, then that means you probably are better off squeezing the ball, right? Because you need that discipline of the knees right across from each other. So the challenge is that we try to keep stable on the base and we isolate in the stomach area, in the waistband to create the twist. Okay, and try to keep the spine up, although it feels like it's in a transition, it's kind of rotating off the axis, but keep the legs stable and feel that it's a pretty small action, isn't it? It's not big. Belly relaxes, so the diaphragm strengthens when you twist. Don't want to tighten the abdomen when you take the turn. I kind of relax the squeeze, but go back to the squeezing if it feels helpful. If it's hurtful for any reason in your low back, relax the squeeze. Probably will be easier. Okay, come back to the heart center forward, and then remove the ball, and let's take the bolster in front, and you might work with a bolster on this pose. It might be too much additional stuff to touch onto, but I want you to take the right foot, cross it up over the left knee. So it's a simple seated pigeon pose. And you're going to lean forwards and The bolster gives us, it's like if you were to use 2 chairs, which I think would be a little much to ask us to start using 2 chairs. But we have a bolster, and when you lean forwards, feel the reaction. I hope in your right hip, you can feel that circulation building. If the bolster is too much extra, you can always do this position without the bolster, hands on the chair and lean forward. All of us will find this is enough, but the bolster is a nice addition for the circulation along the muscles, the paraspinals, and the back muscles. Gets us ready for some of our upcoming plank poses. Okay, there's some setting in the shoulders and these rib attachments. So have a felt sense of movement here. You can go a little back and forth. You can stay with that still point. The left foot straying a little far forward, you can scoot it back into the center, so it's a little more in the middle of your mat. And then back to that neck release, head releasing down. Yeah, good work. Get a feel of how the shoulders balance balance with the arm reach. And now as you shift back to starting, uncross, right? And you're going to bring that other leg up to the right leg, right? Left foot to right. The beginning moment could be cranky in the hip. So you might be finding that you want your bolster really close and just find some stability in the sitting shape. If it's your foot doesn't feel like it's in a good grounding position, you can always add a block under your bottom foot. And this makes it a little intense, I find. When I add the block, it's a lot of stretch into my hip. So that's an addition you could use as well. I feel like I need more of a stretch into what I already have going on with my stretches. So as you lean forward, you can use that block, you can go without, but you can scoot the bolster or a chair and reach out of the breath. So encourage that length of the inhale and the exhalation. So continuing, there's always further to go. It may not be an obvious destination because it doesn't look like my goal is to get to some other spot on my mat with my bolster, but it's an internal kind of investigation in your left hip. Right, so you want to find, how do I work with my hip joint in posture so I can loosen up tension so it helps my back muscles, helps my thigh muscles. So kind of just investigate, maybe close your eyes and breathe. Of course you're breathing, but as you're experimenting with the approach of leaning into it, feel if you're kind of top heavy or bottom heavy on it. That's kind of interesting to me. It's like I do sometimes push a little more into my base because I'm sitting in a chair. But some of us kind of grind away at this and just push with the upper body. So find a nice kind of transfer of the balance. Transfer of the balances. So as you lean, feel if the back is scooping, right? If you're a little bit of a kind of like a cat spine, or if you have a little bit more somewhere in between that and an arch, neutral. Let's take just a few more moments here. And when you steady that motion, we're going to be getting ourselves towards hands and knees. So I want you to kind of feel that this is a little risk you take, right? Every risk you take in the practice, there are some. So we want to continue the reaction of the back muscles reaching. So come back up to kind of a sturdy center, uncross that left leg, and let's put the bolster down. And I would just kind of push it along in front of you. So when you do go down to the knees on the ground, you're not like stuck on the bolster yet. So if you like to have a blanket under your knees, just use one. I would just put one right next to where my feet are and sideline of my feet. Not too far back because you don't want to trip over your blanket. And now you're going to basically dive into the path of the props now. I know we're starting to dive off of our chairs in class, huh? Okay, so come down to the knees, and hands have a position of spanning out through the fingers, right? They position under the shoulders generally. Okay, that's kind of a general focus in this. But we're close to a chair. So this will be something you'll have to kind of modify because no one wants to hit the chair on these poses. So first thing, just simply move into cat pose. Let the toes either stay under or flat, top of the foot. You choose. I feel a little bit more stretch in my foot with the toes under. I like that. Don't get a lot of that during my daily habits, so just stretching my toes is good. As well as stretching my nose towards chest, right? So feel the curling of both the back and the front, not just the spine having this operation of rounding, but also the abdominal muscles pulling in and up. Okay, let's take one more time of that motion. And I want you to try coming into plank pose from cat today. So if you're kind of close to the chair, if you're close-ish, I would just scoot the knees a little forward. I think you'll be okay anyway, but it's only plank pose. So the hands are forwards and you're rounding the back. And then what you'll work with is lifting your knees. And it's kind of an easy way to get into this, I'm finding that I might still have a little bit of a rounded pattern in my back, yes, but now I can kind of fine tune that and bring a little weight in the heels of my hands. And I can also back off because some of us might not appreciate that in our wrist, okay? Lower down the knees. And then if your bolster is too far forward, scoot it back in so it's closer to you. So as you lower your front thigh rim, the hip flexor is on the bolster. And then feel how the ribs reach forwards into up dog. Okay, and we don't want to tire out in the spine. So as you're working the motion of breath and this general lift out of the arm muscles, can you reach the chest down to the bolster? And then find how you lose pressure in the wrist. I would just start to slowly get rid of that. So lower the elbows down, so you're in Sphinx pose. You can feel the feet relaxing and the spine situation. Let's see if it can just be really pretty peaceful in your back. Even though you're still putting a charge in the back, your voltage isn't that high, but it's charging the back. This is our back charger. It's kind of funny because these are baby back bends and they're pretty essential fundamental poses. Like you learn them when you're in your little infant time, right? Tummy time. So this is our back charger. So when the spine is in this natural arch, feel if you can let your brain still have a lift. Now noticing what you tense up to do that is probably in the neck. So what I'm working with is feeling the ribs on the bolster, they can get more workout. My neck doesn't need any more tension. So I'm gonna work with breathing and then maybe feeling a little lift in my rib cage forward. Just work with that. And now be kind to your neck here. Let your head lower down. I would just use the bolster. I'm going to push mine a little bit back so I can make a little hand pillow for my head and lower your head down. If this doesn't work for you, you might have your other blanket nearby, which is extremely nice. I can fold it up and then I put my forehead on it and then my nose is not pushing on anything. So I'm kind of a free breather on this one. I'm going for this because it just feels so comfy. So feel the movement of the legs behind you. And I want you to try to lift up the right leg. Brain still is forward and down, whether it's on your hands pile or it's on your blanket. Could be on a sandbag too. But as you lift up that right leg, feel the front of that right thigh at the very peak of the thigh connecting to the pelvis. Feel that press into the bolster. Lower down the leg and switch sides. Left leg goes up. Give this stuff a try. This isn't really stuff to pass on. I know I've had my own Zoom experiences where some pose patterns I just pass. But try to do these for our back strength. You're free to pose pass when you want. Okay, lower that left leg down. And now you might just wag your tail a little bit. Blanket goes away. And then slide the hands back so palms are pressing and ready to go. Lift up in the front body. We're going to go into oftentimes called lizard pose. Okay, lunge lizard is what I like to call it, lizard lunge. So as I come back to my neutral crawl position, I want to still keep this natural movement of my spine. That's kind of tricky. So toes under, less is more. Move the hips back. Now when you're here, you can tell that this hip flexor area kind of, it already bunches up in kind of a fundamental grip. So take a step with the right foot. Careful, if you need to do some cat-cows before you step out, that's okay. So if you need to do anything in between, down dog, you're always welcome to find poses that are supportive. But as I step into more of this lizard lunge, we'll have to decide what we want to call it besides lizard, huh? But the left thigh is on the bolster, the front of the thigh, and my right foot stepped out. I'm pretty low with the waist towards the bolster. Okay, you could come up more, but causing back stress. Back stress is if I try to get a little bit higher, it's a better stretch, but I'm okay with my hands down. But some of you might be better with your hands kind of on the bolster without that wrist pressure. Seems like the wrists will be part of it no matter what I do. So that right inner thigh, instead of keeping that bottom right foot pressing, I want you to get a feel of stepping a little bit out to that right side. You're not going to go into some bizarre splits here, but feel the foot, bottom of the foot down. There's no rolling on the outside of the foot. This is kind of has been taught a bit in the past, but I'm not sure about that reality for the knee joint. So we'll just stay kind of standard here. So as the thigh stretches, we're reaching the chest center and forward. Okay, right knee moves out to the right side, so it's kind of next to that shoulder area. And now as you come back to switch sides, right knee center on the blanket, left foot steps out. Be careful if your knee is not completely content here. If it's a little grindy on the knee, I would have the bolster farther back under the right thigh. So it kind of, my right knee is not really pushing on anything right now. It's kind of drifted up a little bit above the blanket. It's touching it, but the muscles aren't pushing down and the joint is not grinding into that blanket. So the bolster is really giving a little bit of a fascial kind of pin and stretch here. Okay, it's interesting. Each side could be a curiosity on its own. But as the centerpiece goes, you could put your hands on the bolster. Remember, the left bottom foot is down, even though it's turned down on the left side. There's a natural arch. So you could make this a deep arch with the hands on the bolster. You could have the hands down and let your head relax and breathe. It's only temporary. But it might be a cumulative sequence, right, that could be helpful today. So give it a chance. And now when you do feel that stretch to the front of that right thigh, notice if the back foot is relaxed as much as it can be, toes resting. Hands walk back. Let's keep our left foot in that out zone, okay? Let's bring the hip back to neutral. Be a little careful with your back knee here. So I want you to move the bolster to the right, and you'll walk the left foot into center on your mat. You'll pick up the back knee. Well, don't pick it up with your hands. Pick it up with your leg muscles. Turn to the right, and take your bolster into a support for a wide stance downward dog. The chair might be a little in the way here. So you might have to scoot your right foot under the chair. Just be chair conscious, that's all. I like to do this with a blanket on my bolster. I'm just a real fan of going back to fundamental work with my pose pattern. So it's really safe for my neck. So as I lower my head down to the bolster, it's really easy going, right? So some of you, this might be a stress on the legs, but keep in mind the idea of any dog pose pattern is that your hips move back and the buttocks stretch down towards the heels. So even though this isn't, I don't know what normal is, but it's not feet hips distance, you still have this opportunity to traction. So the hands are either on the floor, or if you really need some height, just use your blocks under your hands. So that would be an option. And if it feels like it's a little stress and you want some more comfort, I would just use them or just try them, because it is kind of delightful to have this support in the joints. For me, this feels good on my shoulder. My chest gets a little more stretch with the blocks. But as the weight is down to your feet and a little on your head, breathing, ribs move. Okay, a little care with the hyperextension here. So I'm not pointing fingers at anyone with it, but feel if your knees can do a little mild bend. Head still is down. So stretchy in the legs. Shift forward to the hands. If your hands are on blocks, keep them there for a moment. Slide the blocks back so they're a little more in proportion under your shoulders. And then we're actually going to move our bolster. If you have a blanket on top, just let it all go. Push it away. I think it's on the screen. And then we'll turn to our chair. So I'm just using my blocks to help me get there, although they're not as helpful as the chair, to be honest. Take the hands onto the chair seat. And as the hands are on, so you have a lot of height here, space the right foot. So basically the toes are towards the wall parallel, and stretch that left calf, the left heel back and down, and manage the motion so that your feet are in two different tracks. This is important, or your legs is really what it is, but two tracks. Okay. So we're going to play a bit with some balance. So I want you to just notice how the direction of the leg is clearly moving into the right underbelly of that thigh. Okay, so feel the movement of that right knee, and then use the hands on the chair seat to slide, help you negotiate balance. Slide the right foot back so you can see it underneath you, right? It's not hiding under the chair. And lift up the back heel, and then notice if you can start to put a little more weight on that right foot so you can lift the left leg up. Now, if you're too close to the wall, You can take the chair a little bit away, right? So then maybe you feel better about that. So your head doesn't push into the wall. But noticing that we lift the left leg up. Okay. Then lower the left foot down, hands on the sides of the seat of the chair, right foot back, let the hips move forward, stretch the waist to up dog. I like the chair against the wall for this one, so I don't feel like I'm gonna wipe out, but it's okay. Come back to center, left foot under, and let it go under the chair. This will be a series of work, so we're not quite to the half moon set yet. So feel that right heel back and down. If you get a little wiped out in the wrist wipe out, you can always do these patterns with your elbows on the chair. It's just a little more flexibility, right, to do that with your legs. But sometimes that's worth it if the wrist is having discomfort. Slide the left foot back so that it's in your view, right? It's right under the chest. And then when you move the back heel up on the ball of the right foot, lift that right leg up and keep the hands on the seat. They could go farther towards the wall on the chair seat, but you don't want to have your arms kind of out besides you, right? You want to feel like you can use the strength up into the left, the hip joint, right? And I know it's a leg feeling, but it's actually weight bearing on the hip, the femur, the hip. That's where we're aiming. Okay, now lower that right foot and take a reach back like a chair dog. So you're going to stretch both of the arms fully, forward and chest down. And I just love this position just for stretching my back. This is your traditional stop on a big hike position if you can find something to lean into. And let your head nod side to side. Okay, now sitting bones do have an appearance of reaching back, but I also want you to feel the sense of the buttocks reach down towards the heels. There's a connection. So come back to a little lift here. We're going to still stay leaning because it helps. We kind of start to notice this is the way our balance works. We're leaning into this chair. So step the right foot under the chest and lift that actually don't lift it yet. Let the left foot be heel lifting. Okay, so look at that right knee. And as you lift the left leg up, let's not worry how high it goes, but let's try to turn the left hip open, maintain that right knee tracking so it's not going over the ankle. And I want you to feel that there's rotation on the inner right thigh and the left arm lifts up. Yeah, try it. And if it's like, oh, forget it, with the arm going to upwards, the hand, that left hand can stay on the chair. And you can also put it on the back arm of the chair, the back bar of the chair. It depends on how close your chair is to the wall, huh? So that's, I kind of like this to hold the back of the chair because I can still work with this turn of my waist and my leg lifting. Yeah, you can tell how beneficial this can be just for the balance ratio to stability, flexibility. Turn back to center and lower the left foot besides the right. So we have all the stability building in our spinal column here. So keep it with the feet together, okay? Stretch that balance down to your feet, lift the right leg back and up, feel the pressure down to that left foot, look back to the left knee, or down to the left knee. The back is the right leg, isn't it? So when I lift the right leg up, when I'm working still, decades into practicing, that when I turn my top hip open to strengthen in my hip, I want this left knee, so it's stable, it's not twisting, there's no inner torque, external. It's really straight up from the shin. Doesn't do anything. It's just stable. It might be shaky. But if you can work your way towards maybe lifting your right arm, let's say you lift the arm halfway and the inside of that left ankle is starting to get unstable and turn in. Your work is on pushing into your left heel, stabilizing into the left hip. Maybe coming out of the pose 10 times and wondering when we're moving along, which is okay. But you probably have one leg that's a little more challenged than the other. Yeah, we're all challenged on this one. I don't think anyone's not challenged on half moon pose. Okay, now the right hand could be on that back bar of the chair. This I love because I can kind of stretch my right leg back. If someone was holding my right leg, it would be so nice. You have another chair, you put it on the chair. But as you lower your right hand to the seat, turn the waist back center, the hip points back forward, right foot down, left foot stretches back, right besides it, and then lean forward and stretch the torso up. Okay, feel this up experience with the torso. Okay, try to keep focus either right to the wall or a little bit up. I'm going to the wall because I don't know if I'll fall over. So step the right foot forward, then the left. And I want you to bring your hands back up to your hips, stand up, and then bring your right foot up to the chair seat. Okay, we all have ways to compensate the balance, I think. So my habit is this, I'll step my foot back, right? So I can stay upright. So feeling if that's helpful for your hip flexor, left leg, try to lift your back heel up. Okay, that means the leg is straight. I don't think you're gonna bend your left knee and lift your heel up. It's not gonna work. So it's kind of fun to learn about your structure, how things work in the muscles. And you could be hands on hips, you could be arms lifting. Arms could be on an outing. Lower the heel and the right foot. Left foot steps up. A little bit longer, not much more. We'll be on our back row soon. So just stay with it here. Try to keep working with it. Right foot is going to try to work its way towards weight into the ball of the back, the bottom foot. Lift up the heel. I'm not sure if holding my hips is making it worse sometimes because you're pushing a little in and down with your bones. But I can't imagine this is helping me necessarily. It seems like it's a psychological help more than anything. So try to work on that lift. If you're gonna fall over, go to the wall, right? Just reach to the wall and work here. Okay, that could be something you try to start with is heel up, hands to the wall. Okay. Okay, lower the back heel. Lower the left foot, turn to the left side on your chair, or turn left, you're not on the side of your chair, and step the right foot up to the chair. We just had that heel lifting, but it's all in the past now. Let's go forward. So right foot turns out on the chair, and the right knee, it's aiming for me, so it's above my ankle, although I do get a little back and forth on it. So see if you can keep that hip opening, and then move your arms so they rise out and up. There's a skill to this tree pose with the chair where you can work with the feet to help strengthen, especially on that lymphatic channel on that right inner leg. I find this one gets more fascinating each time I try it. The tendency to try to get to this position is overwhelming. But I really like to feel this awareness in my hip. It's like putting weight into the foot is clearly resistance. So notice this is a little more resistance work. It is, right, for your hips and like this. So you'll see this all the time in chair yoga, all the time. And this would be preferred, right, for the resistance into the joint. So get a feeling of that movement. of the spine. If it's really starting to arch and you're losing ground in the vertebrae, press into your left foot. Should feel like some stretching is occurring too. And let's bring the arms open and down by your sides behind the leg. Okay? And then when you do step down with that right foot, just get a feel with the knees bending a little forward and back, and maybe close your eyes for a mini moment. And you'll feel a little difference on each kind of leg strip, right? The circulation balance is a little off. So let's turn to the other side and bring your left foot up, step it up to the chair. The knee points away from you. I want to time it the same on this side. Okay. So we have our balance for the awareness in the pelvis. And the arms could be hands on the ribs. One thing I like to do in this pose is that the thumbs in the armpits and to keep my ribs lifting. I've always been a huge fan of this thumb and armpit with the torso up, suspenders position. But you choose. You could do that for just a moment and then stretch the arms out or up. Up is the trend, right? It's usually up. Trending is this direction. But moving out to a little bit wider experience with the arms might suggest some nice balance for your frame. I mean, this is just so typical that we instruct, right? So the body has potential beyond probably what we're thinking up in this brain of ours. There's the whole body experience, the sensory. So feel when that left foot pushes. Now, if you feel this thigh is a little bit more mobile, it's just easy, less feeling of stretch on the inner thigh. I think that's a huge information for your circulation cycles. If you're a little bit more, one knee has more stress than the other, that inner thigh probably is a little tighter because it's guarding. So, you know, just keep working with these things. Try to do a little more on the sides that are tight. Okay, taking another about half minute here. You can bring the arms up, you can stretch them out. Go suspenders on us if you want. But the spine is trying to still stay with that increased lift out of the back of the pelvis. I know it's hard not to go tree pose trend, right, with the foot to the leg. You could take that at the end. And then arms go out, lower down. And let's go to the chair for a moment. I want you to put your hands under the seat, and then we'll lower down to our knees. And what you'll do is you'll take a blanket behind you and you'll shift your body forward and then lower onto your back. And the blanket could be folded this high, it could be lower. You could have a really low height, right? So it's flat. We're going to do some patterns with bridge and legs up, deep rooted crawling. So, yeah, I'm going to try to go flat. I know that's probably better for my neck, but it's really needs to be, your chair needs to be against the wall. You don't want to be having a chair fall over. But have your chair close to the wall if you need to adjust that. And then add a ball. If you have no ball, you can use a block for this, no problem. And step the feet to the seat. Get a feeling. I think like a firm wood chair is better for this type of pose pattern, because these can be a little bit clunky with lifting and lowering, but do the best you can. Okay, so the feeling of your heel on the side of the chair might work well. It might be better for you to use your foot form to kind of curl around the seat. But as you add the ball, that won't matter really. Elbows are reaching outwards, and squeeze and release. We're going back to that. Inhale, belly full. Exhale, squeeze. Inhale and exhale. Okay, so you're a good way through the session here. So now when you get the feeling of squeezing, Okay, notice if the spine can kind of drop down, like it's a little more easier on your spine. Okay, so I know when you don't squeeze, you're not squeezing, it's a little more archy in the back. When you squeeze in, feel the pressure even into your back, and then push down into your feet, lift up the hips, stretch the arms overhead. Okay, be a little tender on your pressure. So when you lower down the spine, feel the arms towards the ceiling. And then you might even bend your elbows as you lower your spine down. I know there is quite an expectation your arms go straight up and down. But the having some fluidity in the joint package right into your shoulder might be useful. So when you go up and down, alternate drawbridge, you know, kind of get a feel that the elbows can soften, and then see if that helps you massage through the back a little bit. You don't have to be super artistic about it, but get a feel that the spine arches at the base right here. And then I know some of you are in a different timing with it, but feel how you alternate lifting and lowering. And as the back muscles release, the next time we're going to lift, arms go back overhead, and then feel the knees are not squeezing the ball purposely. I'm not trying to push in with my legs. It's just a spacer for actually keeps the knees balanced, is how I work with this one. And then as the hips lower down, you can keep your arms behind you if you prefer. I like to feel that traction. I want you to bring the knees towards the chest and take away the ball. If you want to do a little bit of massage and the glutes right now would be a good time before we go to the bridge. So you're going to be using a block, 1 or 2 on the next set. But if you put the ball, if you have one under the left glute, so under the buttock, you're going to just massage a little bit. Use the feet on the chair to give you a little more weight into the ball. So if my feet are up, the momentum and the massage is just so much greater, right? So my feet are on the ground, I don't have a weight difference. This is pouring more into massaging. So use that squishy. And if the ball's getting kind of flat, that can make it a better massage actually, but just kind of, this is where you notice if you need to get a pump for the ball as you start to get more air out of them. And then go to the other side. And so leaning your weight into it and massaging. And if you notice any click kind of in the hip on one side or more than the other, that's not that unusual. Kind of SI joint. So it might not be at all. Okay, now feel if you are kind of rubbing into the ball, you want both body weight and movement. You want them to be an even experience. So just putting weight into it and laying there doesn't count. You have to have movement so that you personalize the massage, right? Where it feels like it could use that rub. And then as you come away from the ball, I want you to lift the hips. I'm just gonna go 1 block today. It feels just fine. So I'm gonna have the block at the second setting and slide it across horizontal under the back of my pelvis. And work with the feet up first, circle the feet, get a good lift through the legs. Like, I know you can only go so high with them. It's not like you have somebody pulling your leg up. But feel if I effort a lot, it's like it's worse. And I'm just trying so hard. So just let them kind of flow up, get that lift, and then feel how some parts of the ribs kind of sag in this one. So I want you to work with lifting, shoulders down and in, right? Like a shoulder stand. So you're trying to get your arms down and in towards your sides. I mean, good luck getting your shoulders on you, right? But the hands are stretching down. And you're sand free. Sand is going to show up real soon, but not quite. Now feel when the legs start to bend and you lower your feet to the chair seat, and then let the legs stretch down onto the seat. Feels kind of nice on the calves sometimes. Might feel a little intense because that area can be a little restricted. So when you're here with your pattern, the shoulders might roll back out. So all you can do is recognize when things change. And then notice what would be useful to bring back that openness. Maybe it's just to feel the arms kind of press down. Maybe it's a deeper breath. Could be nothing to do with changing and flexing the extremities. It could just be breathing. Now, when you do slide the feet back, you could take Baddha Konasana here, or you could take it without the block under here. So you choose. So I'm going to bring the feet close together, soles of the feet, knees out. And this is pretty deep stretch for the adductors. Of course, it's nice because you just had the legs upside down. So you're reversing that gravitational pull on the lymphatic tissues, right? The lymphatic circulation on the inner leg. Now you're really feeling that pool of circulation stretch. So if you choose and that's too much strain, you could take the block out and go without the block. And that kind of feels nice too. It's not as much of a stretch for the inner thigh. It's a little less. And I think of this kind of as a circulation study. It's a circulation study group. So we can feel how this is across the knees. It's a little buoyant in the knees. There's not a pinning of them. Okay, now as your knees shift back to point up, I want you to be easy going with you have a block under your pelvis for the last pose, then bring your feet to the chair, lift the hips and slide the block out. Okay, now we're all landing on the back of the pelvis. So roll to your left. You could roll right, it doesn't matter, but I'll just roll into the wall. Okay, roll to come up to sitting. Chair still stays at the wall. Let's pull a blanket in so that we can sit on it close to the chair. And I want you to have the blanket, so it's a big flat, blanket. It's a big square. It's not in a quarter fold, but it's plenty of blanket for you to sit on, right? Okay, so it's near the feet of the chair. Now, when you stretch your right leg under the chair to the wall, try to get to the wall, feel how the left knee bends, feel the contour around the knee, especially, a special knee, and add a sandbag to the left thigh. Okay, so we're turning to our left. We have the right leg under the chair. If your knee doesn't like this much, because it's compressive, okay, which has its benefit for circulation, but it also has its tear around the knee sometimes. So I'm gonna just use a ball because that's kind of a little bit of a openness on the outside of the knee. I don't know if you've done classes in the past, and Iyengar yoga, they'll use like the belt, they'll double up the belt and put it on the inside of the knee. And this is similar to that. So we're just gonna use it. Some of you don't, may pass on that idea. Now reach the right arm to the chair seat. How far away you are is a little individual because of your leg length. But so, if you have a long extender, right, of your right thigh, you'll probably be farther away from your chair than I am. So, but it'll proportionally work itself to perfect for your body. So with that right arm reaching, I want you to let your arm have a reach. Your head could relax into your hand though. Okay, I like this version. And then the left arm is behind my back for me For you, it might be over the left side of your face. You might be wanting to do more, like hold the back bar of the chair and stretch into it deeper. Right? You could tip your chair and hold the back bar of it. This is taught often, but I'm just going for basic elementary motion here from my side. I'm happy with that. I love the chair on this because it gives you so much height. And you can't really cause an injury here in your back. You get this nice height in your shoulder matrix as well. But it just looks like kind of an open chest pose. Take a few moments. The left hand could be behind you, it could be up. Maybe close the eyes. It won't surprise you with anything quite yet, so you can safely close your eyes to feel the shape. Now, if your foot is kind of in demand right now at the wall or the back of the chair, like the little, if you have a little rung, see if you can semi-relax it. So that could put some pressure into that right hip joint by flexing and efforting. So your foot has a place, right? It probably has a wall, so that's plenty. You just don't want your toes turning in or flopping out. Right, so you can look under and see is your foot turning in or is it turning out? Hopefully your chair is not turning in. And you might get a feeling here when that foot is touching to the wall, toes are up, you'll bring the left arm down if it's up, bring the right hand down to the chair seat, and then start this rotation to the left. So you're no longer head into your right hand, right? You're lifting through the spine. And maintain this rib lift. Yeah, if you need a block under your left hand, this might be helpful. It might actually not be helpful at all, right? If it's causing my shoulder to go up, it does no good for me. I'm just going to use my finger pads. Okay, now right hand swings to that left leg, maybe. Yeah, I'm getting better turn with my hand on the chair. There's actually some mystery muscle matter in my ribs that I'm feeling, trying to turn, but a little difficult. So if I always rely on my hand touching my knee or my leg to create that spinal twist, I might be losing some of this ground here. And I'm curious about this because of our slouchiness. I'm not pointing any finger at anybody about that, but just of my propensity to that during the day. So working on building these muscle fibers in the core and that lift, right, that inner lift. Just kind of see what the practice brings to awareness for my center. Okay, now come back to the chair. Okay, I think you can move your sand and take a simple cross-legged position. So your right leg crosses in front of left, you're in cross-legged shape, and you're just going to reach your hands on the chair and go sand free. Like I mentioned, we have used it on this before, but it's like a 15-second position. So just lean into the chair. If you're really long arms, you could probably hold the side of the chair, right? And give it yourself a higher standard of reaching. Okay, now come back and change the side. So left foot reaches under, leg is under, of course. Now, if you feel this blanket height is just too low and like it's difficult in your hips to do the stretch because it's hip opening too, you can always make the blanket higher. You could also sit on a bolster. So just notice that if that's a challenge for you, you can change it. You could scrunch the blanket up, make it into a quarter fold. Just like we have with this one, right? The blanket before, you could make a quarter fold to sit under, put underneath you. Don't sit under the quarter fold, but put it under you. That might work nicely for some of us too. So ball is under my right knee. I'm turning to the right. And I'm focusing on the rotation. So this is still rotation, not just when we twist, but just getting into the side stretches, beginning a twist. Left arm on the chair. There's always work to do, so just appreciate what you can. And lean into it. Now, leaning into the chair like this, so when I'm here, spine tall, no natural curves of spine. This is easy. And this, I can feel it grip on my hip flexor a bit. So my work in this is to catch my head, turn a little to the right arm back, keep the lift. Now, for me on this side, this feels a little bit enriching to have my arm to go up. So explore, maybe the arm goes back, maybe the waist slightly turns and leans. And gather your attention on the even rhythm of your breath. Progress to come up and turn to your right. Remember, you can keep your left arm on the chair seat. You can move the left hand to that right leg. That feels really nice sometimes. It gives some movement in the rib cage. But it's okay to go back to the basic. And notice if your left foot, if it's turning in, if it's straight up. You want it straight up at the wall. And feel what can relax in the sitting bones. I know there's a little bit of intensity in the hip flexors on this one sometimes. We'll iron it out coming up here. Turn back to the chair. Take the sand away. Left foot crosses in front of right. It's simple, cross-legged position. Again, if you need more height, you can sit on a bolster or higher blanket. This is pretty low, right, height, so it's not like you're getting a lot of support in your hip, pelvis area. But if it feels like a deep stretch, it's because you're lower than you're used to on these seated poses. So lean forwards. Feel where the spine has its natural arch. And try not to go past that. So if I already feel enough curve in my back, that's probably giving me a sign I don't need to push my ribs farther forward. If anything, I want to let the ribs expand with the breath. So keep that as a focus here, especially as we're going to go to side sage next. So I want you to feel some relationship with your ribs and the breath. Nice work. So come back up. Let's take the legs, uncross. If you need to, bring both feet forward under the chair and bring your hands on the seat so you can get some balance in both thigh groups and feel a little bit of that inner equilibrium. This might work for you for a moment. Rather than pushing too far forward and working on this idea of flexibility, you're working with stability and length into the spine. And remember to shake out the legs. It's like a leg tantrum. And let the shoulders roll. Hands off the chair. And then bend your knees so that you can easily move. Well, maybe you easily can lift your chair and slide it, or you have to actually get up and pick it up and move it away. So now what we're going to do is we're going to come into our little bit of a gentle restorative pattern, but I want you to slide off that blanket and then just fold it. So you've got 2 blankets stacked, maybe even more. You might even add a 3rd blanket on this one today. And then add your bolster to the mat, not on the blankets. And get your sand in your ball. And as we stretch over to the side stage on the left hip down, you get to choose if you want, actually, the best choice would be your chair. Sorry to bring that back into the idea here, but if you don't have your chair and it's already been taken across your room, you can use a block overhead, okay? All right, every class something, I'll go, oh, change the path, you know, every single class, until there's a class I think I have it together, then I'll think I have it together with teaching. So add a sandbag to the side. I have a ball on the inside of my right leg. It's not necessarily knee. It could be inner thigh for some of you. I tend to use my left foot to kind of push it around till it feels like it's just cozy on the knee. Yep. Sand could be on the side. And then I lean in. Yeah, I love the chair on this one. Okay, so you decide where your sand will be. This might be too iffy if it's up high on the ribs. So you have to find kind of that slant where even though you have lung force up high, it's kind of sticky territory because you'll be pushing into your shoulder. You know, if you put the sand really high up and that area can have some pins and needles effect. So just be a little careful. If you start to notice pins and needles and numbing, it's not a great idea to go there. So let's not go to that type of sensation. Even if your arm goes as high and you get pins and needles and numbness, then you want to bring it down by your side anytime. If my head is leaning too far down, I can tell. I'll just take the blanket a little higher. That feels better for me. I don't want it too high. I want to let my head relax into the blanket. Oh, enjoy this one. Enjoy side stage for a few moments here. I'm just feeling that kind of shedding in the sides. Relax the breath. You know, slide any reach of your arm off of the chair if it's on your side. You're already ready to move the sand. So as the sand slides, we're going to take a balancing chest opener. So it's really balancing right for the ribs, we're not balancing on our ribs, it's balancing for them. So as you come up, sitting in front of your bolster, you're just simply going to turn so that the hips are balanced. So you're balancing your tires here. Add a block under the pelvis, lift up the hips, release your head back to the blankets. If it's stacked up pretty high, you might end up lowering that height down. This will be a little easier for you to have your head lower. And then open up. If your feet really push into the wall and it's the perfect pressure, you can stay with that if you need to get closer because you want to improve that and kind of polish that circulation in the front. That feels kind of nice to do. And the feet don't have to touch a wall. It's kind of, if it happens, it works fine. Sometimes it doesn't. And let the spine feel like it moves in to the ribs, stretching. Shoulders back. Lengthen into the neck. Now, if you don't feel like that happens, lengthening the neck, you might let your head nod a little side to side. And it just feels as if you're not trying to tighten the neck. That's considered lengthening for us. Slide the feet in, bending, of course, and then taking that consideration of your how you make choices to shift to the next pose. So consider the back muscles primarily. So as I roll to the right, I already know there's a block there, so I'm just going to kind of push that away. If you're using that overhead, I mean, I don't know if you already have that set. Some of you might have a chair, some will use a block. But roll to the right and get ready for side stage on this right side with the ball. Perhaps be careful of all this kind of pushing matters out of your back. Keep things, I just suggest you have movements very simple, you know, not overly exhausting the muscle pads, right? Just get a feel like one movement. Do I get my sand? Then I get the ball, or the ball, then the sand. And then the arm placement is probably unique to each person here. I bet some have the hand on the side, some on the bolster, some on the block, maybe one on the chair, maybe just me. Okay, so when you get a feel of that reach, right, you might move the chair around to accommodate and satisfy your support. It might be too high. You feel like that's too much lift in one shoulder. And as the movement occurs, this side feels better if my arm is a little lower for my rib stretch. So I think you really have to individualize your moment here, how it feels with your breath. If you're not feeling with breath in your practice, you might feel like you don't get a full experience and kind of a surround as the inhale fills the body and the exhale grounds. You know, if the arm is reaching overhead, I want you to lower it down. We're going to take a brief hip opener. And so I want you to keep this left hip as the focal point. And when you slide that sand away, you'll bring the left knee to the right knee. You have to get close. And then roll your ribs to the right and on the bolster. And I would just bring the hands down on the bolster to help you lift a little bit. And then take the bolster to that right side of your mat. So it's besides your mat. And then you've got one blanket and maybe too close for me. Then as my lower back, I'll take the right leg down. So it doesn't have to be straight. That's probably not a good idea for the back muscles. So if you think about gentle twists on your spine, you want to feel like the spine starts centered from the shoulder blades. That area is very centered. And that's not rolling. And then as the left leg crosses to the right, to the bolster, you place a ball, if you have one, to the gluteal fold. That's probably really more honest than that sacrum. Most of us kind of press the ball so it holds. And as you add your sand, possibly, if it feels as if there's plenty of stretch minus sand, just go without it. But the sand closer to the knee could be quite hydrating for the hip. right? It's like really hydrates that mobility there. As the left arm opens, roll your head to the left. And rest your eyes so the brain can really sense experiencing, receiving repose. Even if you kind of go off into la la land with your eyes closed, somewhere different than pose, you still get some benefit here. Relaxing the face, around the eyes. Now, as you get ready to switch sides, bring your head center, remove sand, ball, knees back in the center. I would let the legs have a full bend with feet on the ground, and then scoot the back of the pelvis right into the middle. Okay, the knees could go to touching, so it's very easeful in your spine. But as you get the bolster to that left side, and then as you cross the right leg over, you could start with the feet like so together, and then bring the right knee up and swing the knee over to the bolster. There's so many ways of creatively linking these shapes. I would just be a little more, sample more options than just one or two, because you might catch on to something that's helpful for releasing your personal, habits of creating tension. So kind of be a little curious. You're the one that can kind of unlock that. So as the right arm opens to the side, you'll turn your head to the right and roll. And then explore if that circulation is really easeful in the chest. Just having just the right arm out on the side, shoulder back. For most people, that's pretty challenging. And most of us, not that, maybe just the most of the population would have trouble with that. So if your head is on enough height, you probably find you're okay. But the key is that rib breath network, so that you can be centered on your back, open up to that right chest, heart. Feel that mobility and hydration. Just give it a few more moments. Now, once we have this lower quadrant of the back, circulation is pretty top notch at this point. Before we do our last pose, just notice how that area is kind of swished around. Okay, because now we're going to move the circulation to the front of that part of the body, to the lower abdomen. Okay, but the back is important that it stays mobile. So as you take the sand and the ball away and just roll to left side, and you're going to prep yourself for your inversion. I would make sure the knees are in a strong bend before you come up to the wall. Now, partial wall, some people do the Viparita Karani at the wall, reverse action. Some might use the chair for chair shoulder stand. So you choose, but if you're going to go wall, with the bolster, if you're going to do chair shoulder stand, I would have the back of the chair the back bar closer to the wall so you can get your feet to touch the wall. But you don't want to be so close to the wall, you're going to fall off. So you want to have some distance, but that gives you some help. But if you're going to go into legs up, you're going to have your sand nearby. Chair, people don't need the sand. Please don't use it in chair, shoulder stand. Okay, for those of us at the wall, here we go. We place our seat next to the wall, sitting bones. Get really close with your tush. And then arm rolls under. Now, if you're going up, upside down on the sensitive shoulder, remember, just go to the other side and start working with that. I don't want you to feel like, oh, my shoulder hurts every time I go upside down. It's not a very, very useful method, is it? So when you get to the legs lifted, one bolster under your pelvis or a couple blankets is good too. Some people feel more comfy with a stack of blankets. Add the weight. Now you could do sand on belly on this position. Some people will do this because of the circulation dynamic into the breathing muscles. I find this to be overwhelming for my breath and my heart. It just pumps too much, and I want to lower the heart rate personally. So, and just get more calm. So you choose, right? Maybe that calms you. I think we're probably tuned a little different, right? So what tunes you into a calm space? Could be sand here, could be sand on the feet. It could be no sand. So when the alignment levels out on the hips, make sure that the feet have their separation. And then feeling where the weight surplus is in the hip bones. Great resistor. This is really a great resistor pose. Okay, arms open out to cactus or straight down. All right, going a little lower than the heart level will be possibly better for blood pressure, right? So finding all these ideas and learning is interesting. Sometimes we get these habits of class formula and we're not thinking about the chemistry inside. So I still kind of like this cactus one, but it is my hands above my heart. So likely a little bit below, be intelligent. It's hard to relearn these things though. You're kind of wired in. So if the spine can feel a sensitivity resting into the ground in the bolster, and stretch the inhale so the belly lifts, abdomen, and exhale belly towards the spine. Simple movement. Relax your reality. Now, when you feel the movement of the breath, and that might shift from your conscious control, if you can just let the control of breath kind of pass by. And just feeling the overall circulation in your body. You might feel just a little part of yourself feeling kind of refreshed. It could be your skin and your face. That's kind of, for me, the difference is something just as simple as that. Maybe a little lower heart rate. I mean, it takes a practice, continual practice, to find the body changing and reflecting and rejuvenating from it. So just shift your feet a little off the wall, bend the knees, and as the hands probably arrive to the sand, you'll slide it away. And with the hands holding the back of the legs and the spine gets a little bit more of a pressure up into the back, to the lungs. And roll to the side. Let your hands reach over, and you'll have a dominant hand and then a non-dominant to get you up to sitting. So once you feel that the hands aren't really a big part of your sitting experience, rest the hands on your lap and let the spine have a gentle lift. Feel how the legs moving downwards counteracts the lift of the spine. So you use the wall. And move the hands up in front of your heart. Have a collective focus to breathe inwards, to receive wellness for all of us in practice, inwards and those out of the practice. Breathing in and exhale, bowing into the space behind your heart. Namaste. Thank you. Okay.